Good morning. We're going to try something new today. I have an hour before the brood comes home, and I got some stuff to do. So, just arrived in my driveway, that's the word, and I'm going to take you with me inside, and I got to get organized, but I want to share with you something that happened this morning that made me think about, wow, so many things. I went to my kids' school to drop off my daughter. She had left the school, she had a new school, she wanted to go back to visit, so I made the arrangements and I dropped her off, and wouldn't you know, my other two kids who go to that school come up to me and say, "Emma, can I come home with you? Emma, can I come home with you?" Well, what does that bring up for me? First of all, it brings up the internal trigger, brings up the topic of boundaries. It brings up the topic of emotional regulation, because my little daughter, 7 years old, I had just spoken to her teacher who was saying, she learns really well, but she's always saying she misses her mom and dad. And I said, I think we have some separation anxiety here. We're going to have to, deal with this emotionally. So I mentioned in my past video, you haven't seen it, so I'll fill you in, that whenever we have a struggle with our kids, it falls under 4 categories. We need to look at 4 things. We need to look at staying calm. We need to look at our emotional awareness, managing big emotions, ours and our kids. We need to look at boundaries, and we need to look at creating connection. And all these things came up this morning, and I wanted to talk about specifically triggers. I want to talk about staying calm when our kids trigger us. For example, when I am inundated with, "Can I come with you home? Can I come with you?" What? I have an hour to do things this morning. And that triggers me. So what does it mean to trigger me? It means that I have this internal reaction on the inside that's really, really strong. And it doesn't make sense. It's disorganized. I don't know why it's there. So it lacks clarity. It lacks organization. It lacks integration, which means that there's an automatic stress response happening for me. That's what's being triggered. Somehow this is a threat to me, and I don't know why. And what's important is that we understand why, so that we can bring clarity. We can organize what's happening. It doesn't mean that I don't have the reaction, but that I have a consciousness around it, that I have an awareness of what's going on, and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. So when my daughter says, "Can I come home with you?" I can now communicate to her, acknowledge her point of view, and recognize my own needs, and say no very clearly. And that's what a boundary is. A boundary is identifying what my needs are, identifying what my children's needs are. And I should just add, when we're setting boundaries, it's not just about boundaries in the relationship with me and my children. This is boundaries in general in life. What do I need here? And what does the other person need here? And what are my values? What's most important here? What are the principles and values that I'm trying to, in the case of my children, nurture and educate? And what do I stand for? And ultimately, boundaries are meant to keep us safe as individuals, but individual parts of a whole, of a relationship. They keep our relationship whole. So I needed to know what my trigger, that I was being triggered, and I needed to be able to contain that, to manage that, to hold the emotions that come up for me, contain them, so that I could clearly, consciously communicate a boundary, and I could connect with my kid, comfort my kid in light of that boundary. She wanted to come home with me, and I was able to comfort her and give her a really big hug, and so that the boundary didn't come from, "Ugh, get away from me," or, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're asking me for this. Who are you to need me?" Or push her away, or punish her for wanting me, but to say, "Oh, there's a part of me that really wants to say yes. There really is. I want to say, yeah, I want you to come with me. But there's another part of me that needs to go on my own right now and get some things done before you get home." And I gave her the biggest, biggest, biggest hug, and she said, "Emma, can I get an icy pole," which is Australian for a popsicle, "when we get home?" And I said, "Yeah," and she was happy with that. And I had also said to her, acknowledged her anxiety around her separation, and invited her to draw a picture, to take these feelings inside her body and draw Mommy a picture, and when you come home I want to see the picture. So you take all this, and then maybe this evening we can go for a walk and you can tell me about what you're drawing. Maybe she's into it, maybe she's not. We'll see what happens. We just plant that seed. But I'm able to connect with her because, going backwards, I was able to set a boundary because I was able to manage my big emotions and recognize hers, and because I could recognize my triggers and I could understand them and organize them. So those four qualities, those four elements of parenting with confidence are so important to manage these day-to-day interactions with our kids, so that instead of falling into old patterns, snapping, reacting, I can feel confident, I can feel calm, I can feel connected to my kids in my responses to them. I can feel whole, they can feel whole, and we can feel connected in a secure, meaningful relationship. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for sticking with me in my car. It turns out that this is where I stayed in the end. I guess that's what I need to focus. In any case, have a great weekend, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.